And just from an energetic level, when you can actually understand that it's already here. So you're already sitting in the vibration of, oh my God, like this beautiful home, the beautiful relationships I have, the beautiful clients, the beautiful partner, beautiful work I do every single day, you then can attract more of it because it's the same exact vibration. On a very simple level, gratitude just opens you up for more of that in your life. And what a blessing that could be.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Academy Podcast with the #1 international best-selling author and multi-award winning success and life coach, Kamil Shah. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking this opportunity to grow together with me, Kamil Shah, and my guests on this program. Each episode of the Academy Podcast is filled with insights and wisdom from my guests, which I believe can have a profound impact on the way we live our lives. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello and welcome again to the Academy Podcast with myself, Kamil Shah, and I hope you're doing well wherever you are tuning in to this episode. Today, I'm super excited because I have another special guest, which I want to bring on very, very soon to share her experience of how she came about to writing in the latest #1 international best-selling book, Authentic. Joining me today is Bridget Aileen Sicsko. Bridget is the founder of Exalted Publishing House, a podcast host, and a leadership consultant. She helps successful entrepreneurs stand out and be featured as a leader in their industry through sharing powerful stories, writing best-selling books, and gaining global recognition. She considers herself a master community builder and has gathered hundreds of female leaders throughout her online community, mastermind program, networking events, and women's circles. Bridget also hosts a podcast called The Gathering MVMT, where she has interviewed over 60 entrepreneurs, TEDx speakers, authors, thought leaders, and visionaries to discuss the realms of unlimited potentiality, Kundalini yoga, metaphysics, energetics, and quantum reality. Bridget has been featured in Authority Magazine, Thrive Global, The Medium, on Ticker News, News 12 New York, and numerous podcasts, including this one. So I'm super excited. She lives in New Jersey with her husband and border collie beagle, Finn. Most recently, Bridget yet again became an international best-selling author with the co-authored book, Authentic, Courageous Humans Who Changed Their Lives by Rewriting Their Story, when it hit #1 again on the Amazon charts across the globe. Welcome, Bridget.
Thank you so much, Kamil. That was quite the introduction.
I'm just super excited to have you on the episode, Bridget.
Me too. This is going to be a great conversation.
Awesome. Again, we've connected before. We've had IG live sessions before, so which is why when we had that IG live, I was like super excited. I said, Bridget, we have to get you on the Academy Podcast. I've got a new podcast coming on, and I like you. I'd be grateful if you say yes to becoming one of the guests on my podcast. So thank you for saying yes.
You're so welcome. I loved our conversation on the Instagram Live, and we had all the tech issues, but it didn't matter. We had such a good conversation, and I know that it's just going to go probably one level deeper today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Would you mind sharing with us your story and your journey of how you come to writing in Authentic?
Yeah. So when Tina, the publisher, came up with this title of this book, Authentic, first of all, that spoke to me on a very deep, deep level. That's a word that means a lot to me in reflecting and in writing the chapter. So much more about who I am and who I was as a young child really came through. Tina and I know each other from the publishing world, and I was so grateful that I could also contribute to her project, because not only is it fun for me to put together multi-author books, but it's also a whole other beast and blessing to write and to share my own story and to really reflect on the moments in my life that have allowed me to be the person who I am today. And to be honest, I never considered myself a writer. I didn't think I'd become the author. I'm the program facilitator. I'm the teacher. That's the very easy role for me to play. When it comes to writing, I've learned that so much can come through when we just have a space and have some simple questions to start asking ourselves. And I found it to be very healing. So that's how I ended up writing my chapter in Authentic, which I called Unwilling to Compromise. And it's really my story of my unwillingness to compromise, even as a very, very young child, a young adult, and into my 20s of who I truly, truly am.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I've read your chapter, and it's really, really interesting because you take yourself back to where you were young. Yet I'm not going to go, as with all the other chapters, I'm not going to go into detail because I want people to go ahead and buy themselves a copy. And now, I'd like them to go not only buy it for themselves, but also maybe give it as a gift to other people. By purchasing, you are actually helping us help other people. So that's a noble cause in itself. Coming back to your chapter, it's really interesting because you go back as far back as your childhood, and a lot of the questions that you were asking now you had to kind of trace yourself back to moments in your childhood. And I thought it was really, really interesting. And in doing that, you've managed to they kind of shaped you to where you are now, and it helped you kind of propel yourself or create your future.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful reflection. And it's funny because, right, we have this word authentic. And I think for many people, just having a word like that, there's so much attached to it, right? I'm almost seeing the word in big letters and then all of these offshoots of like what that word means to us. And right away, as soon as I started writing, it brought me right back. I wasn't expecting that, right? And that's why I mean it can be like a beast and a blessing because you are opening up these parts of yourselves that maybe you haven't connected with in quite some time. So for me, it was going back to my childhood and thinking about all the times, even when I was very young and didn't have a strong sense of self, right? When you're very young, you're just trying to figure out the world. And maybe not even figure it out. You're just navigating and living, which is beautiful. But it allowed me to realize that there are moments of my life where I was being my authentic self, when I was saying no, when I was quitting things, when I was leaving things, and when I was ultimately just doing and saying no to things that didn't light me up and only doing the things that lit me up, which is so much a part of who I am today. And thank you, young Bridget. Thank you for doing those things. I have no idea how she knew these things, but she just did.
That's really interesting. I keep thinking about the commencement speech by Steve Jobs that says, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And self-introspection, looking back at where you've been, potentially can give you clues as to how you might live your life now, but not only now, but in the future of what potential that you might have. You might have forgotten certain potentials that you've actually moments in the past that you've actually overcome or you've done. Those sparks of, inner genius that you've forgotten. Sometimes I feel that, we've grown out of being kids, but then when you reconnect with your inner child of what you were before, you kind of remember those things and say, oh yeah, I did that before. And, it's amazing when you have that revelation.
So true. And it's funny because a lot of the work I do now is storytelling and helping leaders understand their story. Because when I started reflecting on my own story, and I've been journaling since like 2012, 2013, so I have a lot of writing and reflecting that I've done. But when we start to really look at our own story, it only ever makes sense in reverse, right? And we just start to see these little pieces. I call it the puzzle pieces of existence. You have these little moments, the ahas, the challenges, the beautiful moments, the challenging moments, the sad moments, the happy moments that all plant this little seed within us that teach us something about ourselves. And then when you're able to look back and say, wow, and it also helps you be very grateful for your experiences instead of like the victim of the experience. You say, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful I had that experience because it allowed me to understand who I am. I'm so grateful for me personally that I dealt with a health issue at a very young age because it opened my eyes to holistic healing, to personal development, to knowing myself at a very young age.
Amazing. There's a few things that I've picked up from that. One key thing that I picked up was journaling. Now, I'm a big fan of journaling or kind of writing because you mentioned there it was a healing process when you wrote your chapter in Authentic. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, in terms of suggesting, someone who hasn't done any journaling before, how can they go about doing that?
Journaling is such a great practice, and it's such a great doorway, I think, for anyone. I have a very deep spiritual practice that I show up for every single day, and it looks a certain way. But journaling is such a great gateway to just understanding yourself. So it's evolved over the years in many different ways, but right now, for me, it looks like writing down every single morning what I'm grateful for, and then I move into every single day what I received. And that might be new clients, it might be money in my bank account, but a lot of the times it's like having a great conversation with you, or it's going on a date with my husband, or spending the time watching a great movie. And it allows me to just focus on all the aspects and all that I'm already receiving in my life. And then maybe I'll journal a little bit about what I'd like my day to look like, or maybe I'll do some future visioning, as I call it, of kind of stepping into the future experience of how I want to feel, live, act. So it can look so many different ways, and it's just such a simple way to kind of move the cobwebs that might be in your mind when you're waking up in the morning.
Well, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. The way that you've described it, it's really interesting because it seems quite a simple way of doing self-introspection, just writing. Sometimes people come to me and say, look, I can't write. I have a writer's block, or, I don't know what to write. Sometimes people say, I don't know what to write. I've got this book of kind of blank sheet staring at me and I don't know what to write. But sometimes I just say, just start with something, just start. And that's how I started. I knew I've read and I've heard that journaling is good. I've never journaled before, and I just went to the store and just bought, the cheapest journal, but it was bound, and then it wasn't anything fancy. Got myself a pen and just started writing, and it's amazing because it was just like the floodgates just opened. It was just such a revelation for me. I don't know, how was it for you?
Yeah, and some days are different than others, right? There are those days where we're like, I'm just going to write a couple things and that's all that's coming out right now. And that's also okay. And then there are those some days where it's just a stream of consciousness. All your ideas are coming through. You're working through emotions. It's such a beautiful process. And I feel that this is one of those practices that should be like fundamental in schools. Like they should be teaching this to kids, and maybe families will do this going forward as more of the adults are doing this for themselves, of, hey, just write down how you're feeling today. Hey, write down like what you're grateful for. These simple things that allow us to just redirect. And that's a big part of my belief, is that we have to first find the foundation of self, but we always have to have this ability to redirect where our focus and energy is going, because most of us are focused on something that doesn't serve us, right? All the mental baggage or all the things that are going wrong, because they can be very heavy. So a simple redirect through journaling actually has the ability to completely shift your day.
That's a really interesting concept there, because I picked up on what you mentioned about kind of teaching it at schools, and I'm just reflecting on this morning. I went to send my kids to school. I sent my Hannah, my little girl, into class. It's interesting if I can recreate that kind of moment where she goes into class. If everyone starts off, even before starting the lesson, to just write on a sheet of paper, what are you grateful for? 3 things. And at the end of the day, before they all leave, just write 3 things again. What are you grateful for? And do that every day. That's almost like a bit like journaling, right? You start off with gratitude before you start the lesson, and before you leave, you end with gratitude again.
So simple.
That's
You're onto
really
something
interesting.
there.
Yeah, no, because I was just thinking when you mentioned about teaching it in schools, and I'm like, well, yeah, why don't they teach it at school? Because why does she need to wait until she's my age now, where I'm starting to kind of journal, wait 40 odd years to start journaling, when you can start doing it in school or at home right now?
Yes, this world doesn't quite teach us how to live or how to navigate life. So if we can equip ourselves and then our children with these types of practices, I think we could see a very different future world and generation. That's a really deep topic that I'm very passionate about as well. So, lucky children you have.
Interesting. No, I'm just putting two and two together. I mean, this is why I love these conversations, because each time I have a kind of a deep conversation with amazing guests like yourself, things start to connect on that as well. You mentioned about gratitude, the power of gratitude. Now, if we can just touch on the idea of gratitude for the next few minutes and what it means, because again, a lot of people are asking, myself, I'm hearing a lot of gratitude, on social media, people talking about gratitude this, gratitude that. What does it actually mean? So what does that mean for you?
Well, we have something like 70,000 thoughts per day, some crazy number like that. And most of them are all over the place. Some of them are self-deprecating. Some of them are inspirational. But if we can be very conscious about maybe even a small percentage of our thoughts and what we are focusing on in a given moment, we have the power to then build momentum behind that. We have the power to expand upon that. So it's very simple. All that you're doing is focusing on what you are grateful for, all that you already have in your life, because most people want something outside of themselves, which is fine to have desires. That's part of the human experience. But most people aren't acknowledging and recognizing the beauty that already surrounds them. And just from an energetic level, when you can actually understand that it's already here. So you're already sitting in the vibration of, oh my God, like this beautiful home, the beautiful relationships I have, the beautiful clients, the beautiful partner, the beautiful work I do every single day. You then can attract more of it because it's the same exact vibration. So that can go deeper, but on a very simple level, gratitude just opens you up for more of that in your life. And what a blessing that could be.
Nicely put, nicely put. And then again, the fact that for the listeners out there, you're listening to this. So, just give gratitude the fact that you've stumbled upon this podcast and you're listening to Bridget and myself talking about this. So that in itself, just saying thank you, the fact that, the universe, God, whatever it is, that's just kind of directing you towards this conversation that we're having here. So that's simple things, I guess, the simple things add up to kind of a bigger field of energy, positive energy.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if we'll talk about books here, but I have to just share my favorite book because I think that
absolutely.
Your community would also love this. And maybe you've read this. Maybe we talked about this. The book is The Slight Edge. So it's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And It's all about the small daily disciplines that we do every single day that are seemingly mundane, sometimes monotonous, pretty small and minuscule, that repeated over time builds momentum. So when you are every single day reading a book, 10 pages every single day, that is building up and building up and building up. When you are listening to great shows and podcasts like this, that literally you're going to feel inspired after you listen to something like this. You're going to learn something new, and you do that again and again and again. It's going to open up something in your life. So even though we don't think it's a big deal in the moment, like, oh, we're listening to one podcast, when you continue to put yourself into a field of more of that incredible information time and time again, it expands in ways that you never even expected.
Wow, I have to read this book.
It's good.
I'll go and get it. I've written it down on my notes here next to me. So that's on the next book that I'm going to be covering. When I'm having this conversation with you, I'm reflecting on similar kind of experiences that I've had in the past, of how that has led me to where I am now, having this conversation with yourself. I used to remember that, a few years ago, I still do, on my commute to work, I put on now I put on podcasts, but before putting on podcasts, I just used to literally, like you're saying here, put it on repeat every single day. It's either speeches by Jim Rohn, Les Brown, or sometimes Tony Robbins, Simon Sinek. It used to be the same. I don't mind listening to it over and over again, but because each time I listen to it, I get new ideas, and it affects my day in a positive way. I show up to work feeling energized after that, commute. Whereas before, if I miss a day without listening in the morning, I can see a big difference in terms of energy level. I'd be sluggish by the time I get in. I truly believe that what you've mentioned there about the repetition of even the simplest things add up to something much, much, much bigger down the line.
Yes, and this is opening up a really important conversation here too, which is of sound and how the subconscious mind is programmed. And it's programmed through repetition. So when you are taking that time every single day to listen to these things that are like, you can do it, anything is possible, and you're listening to that again and again and again, that is what creates this new belief system within your subconscious, which is running the show. And for me, this is a big part of my studies of Kundalini yoga and sound, because sound is everywhere and everything. So what we consume, conversations, podcasts, TV shows, books, it's very important to me, because I know that if I repeat and do all these things again and again and again, it is impacting me and the reality I see.
Now we're kind of talking about how do we create our reality. Again, a really interesting topic, which I've had many conversations with friends and even family before, sometimes heated conversations. So I'm a great believer about, we are what we consume. And looking at my previous self, what I was consuming and what I was spending time on was not nourishing me. It wasn't nourishing me. So again, if I compare it with food, it was almost like junk food. Now, understanding what junk food can do to you, I try not to, consume a lot of junk food. I still do. I still indulge in, Snickers, the odd chocolate. I'm a big chocolate fan. But, I still do consume, but it's in very limited amount, because, those are my, I guess, treats. But I go heavy on the healthy stuff, because I know what, consuming a lot of the junk can do to you physically, and most importantly, mentally. How you shape and how you show up is what you put in, be it food or whatever you're listening to, whatever you're watching, whatever you're seeing, and whatever you're talking about, So these things are very, very important.
I love this topic, and I think it's a beautiful indicator in society that more and more people are becoming aware of what they eat, right? I think food for many is a huge doorway. In yogic teachings, we have these 5 sheaths or 5 layers called the koshas. And the physical body, the food body, is the first layer. It's the biggest, it's like the most dense for us as humans to engage with. So food is a huge doorway for people to understand themselves. And I think it's awesome that more and more people are realizing that what they consume food-wise does matter. And then as you start to go deeper into, like, maybe you're eating healthier, maybe you're realizing that you want to consume less junk food, as you say, you start to realize that there's other aspects of your life that you're also consuming things, as you said right here, right? What else is nourishing me? It's friendships. It's what we watch, it's what we consume, it's how we spend our time, it's our connection to nature, it's our ability to be with ourselves and sit with ourselves. So as you continue on your journey, you realize that there's so many more aspects of what you're consuming. And when you become more conscious of what you're consuming, you start to realize that your reality, like what you're seeing in front of you, starts to shift too. And then you realize, oh wow, I'm playing an active role in my life here. I can change things, I can shift things, I can create a new identity of myself if I want to or if I'd like to. And it's beautiful to think about.
Absolutely. And again, going back to what I mentioned about kind of the heated arguments I've had with friends and family about, creating your future. And, some people kind of go towards kind of, it's all magic and witchcraft and you shouldn't believe in all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, actually, if you think about it, it does make sense. Your conditioning, again, I use the word conditioning in a positive light, because conditioning can be negative or positive. It depends what you condition yourself as. Again, looking at athletes, they condition themselves to be in a certain way. So if you can condition yourself in a certain way, or you have a specific goal that you want to reach, and you want to be this person, that the best person that you want to be, naturally you would make decisions either consciously or subconsciously to align yourself with those things. It doesn't take much for you to say, actually, now today I'm going to skip consuming this because I prefer this. it just might be that slight shift. And again, we talk about that daily practice, that slight shift repeated daily, automatically you will shift your trajectory and your associations, for example, associations with certain friends. For example, again, I'm looking at myself, conversations, am I consuming in a certain group, but I'm shifting that time that I'm spending to something else. And that shift, that small shift can mean a lot in terms of creating your new life, your new future, the future you.
I haven't heard the witchcraft one before, but yeah, everyone.
Maybe because I'm watching Harry Potter lately with
Maybe.
so that's probably subconsciously in my mind.
Maybe. I'm also very much in a bubble of, and I'm very conscious of this because my husband always pulls me out. I'm very much in a bubble of healers, of yogis, of people who work with astrology and human design and leadership and entrepreneurship. So I'm like, oh, I've never heard anyone say it's witchcraft, but I'm sure there are people saying that.
But it's interesting. It's interesting because it's kind of difficult for someone to grasp if they are unable to understand it. And again, possibly myself, included. But once you take that small step, things start to shift, and you notice it, and you only notice it when we go back to reflecting, right? If you don't reflect, if you don't take the time to reflect, you won't understand where you are now compared to where you were before. And I guess that's one of the key lessons or kind of key takeaways from where we are now. I mean, we're on kind of just keep going. I mean, there's no time to sit down and pause. Here, for example, in Dubai, it's quite fast paced, but I'm taking time where I can to kind of get that moment of pause. If not, you just keep going and going and going. You don't have that time to pause and reflect. And I think reflection is quite important. So what are your thoughts about that as well?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And this is something that I am constantly dancing with. I am a person who's highly ambitious, highly driven, go, idea person, visionary, creative. When I have an idea, it's just like, okay, fire, let's make it happen. And I've had to really take the step back in the last month or so because I was feeling tired. And I've had to really sit and reflect and say, okay, Bridget, you wanted to be an entrepreneur so that no one can tell you what to do, right? So that you could have your own schedule. Like that was very important to you. You could work from the coffee shop, you could work from your home, you can go on vacation. And I started to realize that I was getting sucked back into the really, really fast-paced kind of energy of hustle. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to create something on my own. So yes, it is so important to reflect and to take time. And a big word for me going into 2022 is silence and spaciousness. And that's in my own business. That's in how I live my life, because I do not want to live a life that's just working, although it's my greatest passion. So finding that dance is so important. And you're right, reflecting is really crucial here.
I want to touch on the chapter because you talked about the fast-paced nature of things and taking on more and more projects, whereas you were trying to get out of working for someone else and working for yourself, and getting sucked back into that kind of vortex of energy of the fast pace. In your chapter, again, spoiler alert, I'm just gonna give a tiny bit to the audience here about your chapter. You mentioned there's, I think, a sub-chapter called No. As opposed to yes. That's a really interesting. I read that, and I was I got reminded to that part where you're talking about the ability to say no and why saying no is important. Whereas a lot of people are saying, why are you saying no? We should be saying yes to everything. Opportunity is saying yes to everything. But what you've mentioned there is quite interesting because you can't say yes to anything and everything.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. It's hard to say no. We definitely are brought up in a culture that says if you're given an opportunity, take it. And it's not to say that that isn't true, but there's power in saying no. And I do truly believe that when we say no to something that's not in alignment with our authenticity or our integrity or where we want to be going, it's actually a blessing to ourselves, because it does open up magic to come into an area of our life where we are putting our focus. And saying no is hard because even vocalizing no. It can be really challenging. And again, this is our culture is so fast paced. So it's very easy for someone to kind of, if you think about collective consciousness, it's very easy to jump back into like that thought stream. I hope you can stay with me on that, right? It's very pervasive in our culture to go fast, to move fast. So it's easy to get sucked back in. It's more challenging to go slow, to slow down and create space. And I'm learning that as we speak.
That's great, because that's a great reminder to, and everyone listening, tuning in, to the ability to say no, like you're saying, is much harder to do than to say yes. So just keep saying yes to anything and everything, but it is challenging to be able to say no to something. We're used to saying yes for many reasons. Sometimes we don't want to be seen as negative, or we don't want to be seen as weak. Sometimes to not be able to kind of just say yes to everything and just saying no, I'm not doing that. Sometimes we don't again, going back to reflection and introspection to understand what is it that you actually want for your future. It's not until, I guess, once you understand where you want to go, then you're able to pick out the things that matter to you to get you there, which is why you just default to yes.
It is a good conversation, because I'm just reflecting as you're speaking. I'm doing the same thing that you're doing with me. Is, for instance, when I got certified to teach yoga, I took any and every opportunity that came towards me, because experience is our greatest teacher, right? So the more experiences I had, the more answers I was able to tune into within of, okay, I really like teaching Kundalini yoga or yin yoga, or I like teaching workshops. So it's a delicate dance, right? You have to say yes to opportunities to know what you like and who you are and to have that experience. But there does come a time in the process and in the journey where you start to know yourself so well that when given an opportunity that isn't in alignment with the direction that you want to take, you then have the opportunity to say no. And I've done this, and it's challenging. It's challenging if you've been this person who has done the thing. I'll give the example of, I've been teaching Ayurveda and how to, just Ayurveda 101, if you're familiar with that, to yoga teachers for a couple of years. And I was given the opportunity, hey, do you want to teach again? And I was like, no, I'm sorry. It's not in alignment with where I'm going. It's hard, but they respected my no.
That's interesting. I mean, to be able to kind of say, to reach a point where you understand and kind of just say, thank you, but it's not something that I'd like to kind of venture into, at least at this moment of time, or to be able to say no. I mean, that's powerful.
We need a book on the art of saying no. I'm sure there is one.
Yeah. If not, why not? You have one.
Yeah, there we go.
You write one. So yeah, again, going back to the chapter, if you're tuning in, go ahead and purchase the book, the #1 international best-selling book called Authentic: Courageous Humans Who Change Their Lives by Rewriting Their Story. Bridget's chapter is in there, and one of the, I guess, sub-chapter is called No. And go ahead and read that, because it's quite interesting. She starts it off with a yes, which is quite interesting. Starts off with yes, but then she gives a reason why saying no is important.
Because when you have this strong sense of self, and that's why all the reflection and journaling work and any kind of personal development work that you do can be so helpful. When you know yourself, you almost can, I can feel this in my body. If I'm presented with an opportunity and it doesn't feel good, I can feel it in my body. And one of those very simple boundaries I have is I do not work on the weekends. So I don't do podcast interviews. I don't have the space for it, because I believe so wholeheartedly that spending time outside of this work is so important. I want to live my human life, and for me, that would be a path to burnout real quick if I didn't have that barrier or boundary for myself.
I think that's interesting. You mentioned it. Then it's something that I've had to consciously do on my side as well, because I've just said, look, weekends, I used to kind of work throughout. But now I'm just consciously saying, no, weekends is family time. I'm not gonna. Sometimes I have to, once or twice, but majority of the time I'm consciously saying weekends is off limits. It's family time. Looking back at my previous experiences, picking up calls from people at work, after work, previously I didn't establish that boundary. So I didn't really have, strong boundaries. So I was allowing others to, I guess, take up my time, whereas I should be setting, healthy boundaries. Not saying, unhealthy ones, but healthy ones to protect yourself, your energy, your well-being. Simple things like, for example, I mentioned that I made a point not to pick up anything after work, and it's worked, but you have to set that boundary right from the start. So simple things like that, I noticed that it does make an impact, and it does create a healthier me at the end of the day.
It does, and you said
Yeah.
something really important there, which is honoring and respecting your time, right? So we are all on this planet for who knows how many years. And I have made a very strong commitment to myself that my time on this planet is precious. And that's why writing the chapter in Authentic and being surrounded by people who are courageous humans, reshaping their story, who also believe that their time on this planet is important, and they've been able to shift something in their life to recognize how precious the time here is. And when we can really set those boundaries, when we can understand who we are, and we can take the step back from, why am I working so hard? What am I doing here? Am I enjoying my time? And that's been a big focus lately. I want to enjoy the time. And a big teacher of life is death. Is to see as things evolve, as people pass, as seasons come and go, we start to understand that there's a polarity here. And I believe it's one of our most important truths as humans to really deepen into our experience on Earth, as simple as it is.
A topic that not many people want to engage with. I truly believe that death is a great teacher, because your time is limited before you move on to the next phase, if you believe in the next phase. So if you understand that what you do matters, then you wouldn't be spending it without intention, without any intent. You would be intentional in your days, as opposed to just letting it slip by. Not many people that I've had conversations with are comfortable with bringing that topic up. I don't know whether it's a cultural thing or not, but it for me, I'm open to it, and I really truly believe that it's a good reminder. In fact, I've got on the wall a frame that is a quote from Gary V. I know Gary, people have different views on Gary, but this one was a good reminder, because I saw a clip of him being interviewed by someone. Gary, give me 3 inspirational words, and he said, "You're gonna die." That's it. He just said, "You're gonna die." And I was like, "Whoa, that's heavy." And I had to kind of sit back and think about it. I mean, what does he mean by that? And I said, "Well, your time is limited." I mean, so I've got that on my wall. That's a reminder. I've got other things as well on my wall, other quotes, but that quote, kind of, is really saying, your time is limited.
I love to talk about the topic of death because I truly believe it helps us understand life, and most humans on this planet are not willing to think about it. It is like X. There's a huge X over that word and the associations with it. And of course, from a human perspective, there are so many emotions that go on with death, especially death of a loved one or someone very close to us. But there is so much beauty when you actually think about, okay, my time is limited. I am going to die. How can I make the most out of this life? It allows you to reflect. And, that really will bring our conversation today full circle, because death allows you to reflect. And these moments that we have where we start to ask ourselves questions, am I enjoying my life? Am I doing the things I said I wanted to do? If I'm 90 years old and I look back at my life, is there something I'm going to have regretted? And my husband and I ask ourselves that question a lot. Is there something that we're going to regret if we don't do it now? So it's an important one to talk about.
Absolutely. And again, we talked about not allowing ourselves to go back into that vortex of, fast-paced life. Yes, I believe that death is a good reminder, but in a sense that it's not that, I have to start doing all these things quite quickly, and, I have to cram in my days because I don't know when my day is going to end. I don't believe it's that. I believe it's more about taking the time. Actually, what you mentioned about taking it slower and being meaningful in your days and having gratitude, the simple things. For me, that's much more important. Being intentional in your days, slowing it down as opposed to speeding it up, and being more intentional. That's my point of view about, the reminder of death, of actually being more mindful and meaningful with your days as opposed to being more fast paced.
So well said.
Bridget, I don't think we've done today justice. We've still got so much more to talk about. I'm just looking at the time, and I'd love to do this again, but it's flown by so quickly. I really appreciate your time today, Bridget. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, this has been such an incredible conversation. I'm already sitting with my head. Okay, this is going to be on my receiving list for tomorrow. This was such a good conversation.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just get so excited about conversations like this. So, best places to reach me. My website is www.bridgetaileen.com, and I'm on Instagram. My handle is @blissfulbridget. So you can connect with me there.
Great, and we're going to put all the other handles as well in the description in this podcast. So check that out and connect with Bridget. So now moving on, we're at the tail end of this conversation. We're going to go to the quick 5 question round. Are you okay to do this, Bridget?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Right. So the first question is, what is your favorite word?
Okay, 2 came to mind right away: spaciousness and death.
Awesome. Two is great. Both great reminders as well. So question number 2, what are you currently reading or listening to?
Okay, I'm the person who listens to or reads like 5 things at once. So I do have a lot of books open at the moment. But the one I'll note is the book is called Destiny of Souls. And it's case studies of past life regression. And it's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful book. And I'm listening to The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. And I just listen to it over and over and over again as I walk the dog.
Nice. So question number 3, if you could meet someone either living or past, who would that be?
That's a great question. It's funny. I don't really have those like idols of people I'd really, really want to meet. Okay, this is a weird one. I'd love to meet myself in a past life.
Oh,
I'd love
wow.
to see who that person was.
That is cool. That is cool. I'd love to do that. I mean, that would
That'd be cool.
That would be cool. Nice. Great answer. Question number 4. What advice would you give the younger Bridget?
Just keep up, girl. You're on the path. Say no to the stuff that doesn't serve you and just keep on keeping on. You've got this.
Amazing. Great advice. Question number 5. What can we expect from Bridget in the next 5 years?
I'll share my big vision. So I have a publishing company. I do stuff with entrepreneurs, but my big vision is to open some sort of school called the Aquarian Child. And it's all about teaching children how to grow their own food, emotional regulation, spiritual practices, the meaning of life, how to navigate this human and life experience, how to connect with their food, healing. And yeah, that's one of the big dreams. And maybe it won't just be children. Maybe it'll just be humans, because I think we all need that.
Great. I'm looking forward to that, actually. I'm just super excited. Just when you're describing that, I'm just imagining this place where, you become whole. You're allowed to become whole physically, mentally, spiritually. Coming soon. Yeah. Okay. So Bridget, again, before we leave, any last, advice that you'd like to give to the listeners?
This has just been such a great conversation. And I think one of the biggest themes that I've taken out of this is reflection, in whatever that looks like for you. So you might reflect after listening to a podcast like this or reading a book. You might reflect in your journal every morning. You might literally take some time to look at your life, to sit down with an open piece of paper, look at your life and say what's working, what's not working. So whatever that looks like for you is perfect, but let's all just spend some time reflecting on the life that we are living and the life that we are ultimately leading and leaving on this planet.
Wow. Nicely put. I love that. Thank you so much, Bridget. That on that note, lovely note. I have to say goodbye to you for today in this episode. I've been so grateful to be able to share this conversation with Bridget, and I hope you guys listening to this have taken away something from this conversation. Hopefully, something that you'll be able to kind of use in your own life, and also kind of, I guess, bring positivity and love to others as well. So thank you, Bridget, again. This has been the Academy Podcast with Kamil Shah and Bridget Sicsko. Peace and love to you always. Until the next episode, goodbye from me and goodbye from Bridget.
Peace.
And bye-bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in from wherever you are. My sincere hope is that this episode has not only resonated with you, but also given you some invaluable tips and strategies to improve your life. Don't forget to share your comments with me. As you know, I love to hear your views. Also, remember to follow the Academy, follow me, my guests, and tag us on our social media handles, which will be provided in the description. Most importantly, please leave a review and let me know that you've heard this podcast and how it has impacted you. Until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy, and peace and love from me always.